Hey everyone, welcome for this Hola JavaScript series. So today we're going to see about and we're going to discuss about something that is related to functions, like the before, how hoisting is related to. Same like that, here also we're going to discuss about variable environment. Variable environment. So what is this variable environment and why it is helpful? And everything we're going to discuss today. Okay, so that's what is the topic, and we're going to see an introduction about this keyword. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Okay, so if you remember the first video of our series Hello JavaScript, then you can understand inside this function we have so much of things, right? And lot more yet to come. But till now we know that when a function is executed, let's see, when a function like function a, if I declare the function and I execute the function, and inside this function what happened, so once I executed in the call stack it will be evoked, right? So in the call stack it will be evoked, like a is evoked. So inside this function, and another thing will happen, that is execution context, right? We see about what is this global execution context, and we know that each and every function has a separate execution context, and hoisting is belongs to each and every execution context, right? We have discussed that, right? Same thing. So what is this execution context? Simple. The execution context is the place where the memory allocation and or any other call stack has been evoked. For example, inside this there are two things is there. One is the creation phase, okay, or we can say the memory allocation, or whatever the things that I need to store inside the function, everything will be there. And what is the difference between normal one and this normal declaring a global variable? And inside this memory, these memories are temporary. Whenever the function is executed, in that time only this memories will evoke, and this uh, memories will be useful. So once the function is execution is done, then it's, we never use that, we never access it, right? So that's what happened. So there is two phases there. One is going to be creation, and another one is going to be code phase. Okay, so whatever the code that I need to run here in the code phase, we will see that. And in the creation phase we will see what are all the things that inside the function will create. For example, we can have name. So this is optional. So what is this name? Why it is called as optional means, uh simple, the name of the function. Okay, so the name of the function, so this one is stored inside the function only. We can able to access this function inside, right? For example, if I call the function like this, so something you heard about recursion, right? We can able to access it, right? So what is happening here? So what is happening here, if this variable, we have access to this, right? So that is why we can able to access it. And meanwhile you can see that this is declaration format, right? So how we can identify that my name is inside my function? Well, for example, instead of declaration, if I called const a equal to like this, and I remove, and just remember I have a as the variable and b as my function. Okay, a as my variable, b as my function. And if I say console.log a, console.log j, like that. Okay, so if I run this function we will get this j. What happened right now, it is inside this variable. What happened if I call this b function, right? If I call this b function, is this accessible? Let's see whether it is accessible or not. You can see b is not defined. What happened? Because the name of the function is b, but we cannot access it, we cannot execute it. What is happening here? Well, so here comes the creation phase. So whenever we are creating a function in an expression type, this name is accessible only inside this function. For example, if I simply, instead of that, I just want to access b. Now if the data that is has b, it is inside the function means, then it is going to return me the entire formula, right? It is going to return me the function of it, right? So if it is not, then it is going to show me the error, right? So if I run it, if I call a here, if I run it, you can able to see we have this function. So this function is nothing but the function, right? So what is happening? So we have some storage inside this, that means the memory inside this. Whenever the function is executed, so the memory stores some of the information of the function, and whenever the function execution is done, those memories are get removed from the thing. Okay, so that is why whenever we are declaring a function and we are declaring a variable inside it, that is accessible only inside the way inside that function. Why? The reason it is, they are different. The outside variables are global variables and inside variables are local scope. We have discussed that. So actually we are coming to the point. Okay, that's what we are here. Okay, let's see now. So one thing now we can understand, this name is inside this function. So whatever the name we are given, the function takes care of the name. Okay, so and sometimes whenever we are declaring with expression type, we don't give the name for the function, right? So that is why it is optional one. Okay, so it is inside it. And whatever thing we know that we can able to access the window object. We come to it, what is window object and what is thing, and also the same window this object. Okay, so windows this both are same. Okay, so this is little bit dynamic and windows are not. Like windows are just representing the entire browsers, the window, that is what is representing. And this is dynamic. Okay, so this refers to the property, this refers to the function is the property of. Okay, so we will discuss about this a bit later. So right now understand, so we have the name and we have the window, right? And the yesterday class, like the previous class, we have discussed the hoisting is also takes place, right? Hoisting is also takes place. What it will do, whenever I declare a variable here, so first it will allocate the memory on top of the function which mean each execution context, and it will use the value as undefined. And once it reaches the particular line, then what happened, it will use some value to it. Okay, so this will do this. And once that is done, what we have means we have variable environment. So right now we have discussed three things only inside the function, and meanwhile function is capable to store the variable also. So whatever the variable that we are declaring inside the function, it is go inside the variable environment and it will store inside it. That's what happened. So basically the hoisting, it's happens, hoisting is a process and it is do with this variable environment. Okay, so for example, if I declare let x equal to 9, so now what happened, so here the hoisting is also takes place. So if I call x before initiation, it is going to it is going to give me an undefined, right? So if I say console.log, if I say x, now it is going to give me undefined. Why? Because it takes the it no, it allocates the memory. The hoisting, that what it do, it will just go for the variable environment and it check for what are the variables available. For example, right now we have x and the value is equal to 9. It is in the variable environment, but during hoisting what happened, it takes the x and before the interpreter reads every line, it will allocates the memory on top of each and every function, and it will do it, right? Simply we can run the function, we can understand much more better. If I run it, you can see x is okay. It say x cannot access before. The reason why, because we are created with var. So let, if I create it with var, now it is happened, right? We can able to see undefined and it say error b is not defined. So because here it is not there, we remove this function. So now simple here undefined. So we can able to access it and the value is undefined. X is the value of x is going to be undefined. So that's why it's giving me undefined for us. Okay, so the var is not work whenever we are using the let, but the variable environment is nothing but, so whatever. Okay, so whatever thing that we are giving, whatever the variable that we are giving inside this function, it is go and store inside this variable environment and it will be there for it. Okay, so what is the use case of it? Like, so we have something called as scope chain. What is mean by this scope chain? Okay, so whenever we are creating a function, those functions, whenever we are creating a functions, those functions are called as separate in yours. They will create a separate execution context and they will form it. Okay, we will discuss that much more much more deeper. Let's see. Whenever I create a variable like let a equal to 10, what is happening? Simply, I'm allocating memory to the global execution context. Simply, we can say Windows object. So this A is go and store inside this Windows object, which means in the global it will go and store this. Okay. For example, to identify that, if I say console.log and if I give like this A, now what happened? It is going to give me clear run it. It is going to give me 10, right? So instead of this, if I give window dot a, now what's going to happen if I run this? It shows me like undefined. So let's see that what's happening here. Okay, so why it is showing undefined when I'm running this? Because we have let, we know that let is a block level scopes and it's not doing this, right? Okay, so whenever I declared some variable with var, Now what happened if I run this? It is inside the global execution context, and you can able to see the memory. It's this var variable is go inside this global execution context, which means the Windows object. Inside this window object we have access to this a variable. Okay, so that's what happening here. So simply, whenever I'm calling this function, we know that we have the call stack, right? We know that we have the call stack, and in the call stack we know we have global execution context, right? So in the global execution context we have access to all the variables. We can able to access it, and also which means the memory. So it has two phase, right? It has memory phase, and also it has execution phase, which means the code to run, right? It has two phase. In the memory phase, what we are having means we have the variables that are declared, and also we have some of the default methods available, and whatever we can able to access it, which means the shortage of JavaScript, like whatever the methods that are defaultly available in JavaScript, we have access to it. Okay, so that's what happening whenever we do this. Okay, so we have this variable, and also the code what I need to run. For example, it is console.log, and it need to execute it, and it is working like that. Okay, so whenever we are declaring a variable with let and const, it is not comes to the global execution context. It is in the global variable, so it is not comes to the Windows object, so we cannot access it. But whenever we are declaring with var variable, it is comes to a global execution context, and we can simply, because it's a global variable, we can able to access it and simply it. For example, we can go for it, scope of var let and then const, like this. Okay, just go for the image, and you can able to see this, and what all are the things that we having here. Let us click here. You can able to see var does not have the block level scope, don't care about this td that, and creates a global property and reassignable and declaration. And you can see whenever we declare a variable with let, it creates a global property. This is what, so here it does not create any global property. It is block level scope, and also it is local scope, and it is reassignable and redeclarable, and it is not creates a global scope. So that's what, that is the only thing that you need to here you need to give important. And when I come to the next thing also, you can see this var let and const, three of them have the function scope, but stored in global scope. So var stored in the global scope, and let and const will not, they are not stored in the global scope. So the var variables we cannot use it. Okay, so but the var variable does not have the block things, and all other things has. Okay, so this is the only thing, so you need to understand. So here the let and var, it's not stored in the global variable. So once I declared outside, it is actually inside, that is also in the block of the document. Okay, so that's what happening. So we cannot access by using the Windows object. But whenever we are simply calling like this, okay, so it is considered it, we don't want to give the windows.a or windows dot some functions like that, it is automatically considered. Okay, so it is something that belongs to global object. Okay, in the time what happened if I say let, so okay, so it is also considered. Okay, so it is also considered the entire document as a block level, so it is taking it as a block level, it will execute it. And when I declare with var variable, it is considered it as a global level, and it will execute to it. Okay, so we have access to all the variables, and also we have access to the code that we have execute. Okay, and when I create a new function, for example I create a function name of z. Okay, so now what happened, it also it also it also has two things, memory and also code. It also has the two things, memory and code. So in the memory what happens, the same thing, whatever the variable that we are declaring inside the function, it will be there, and also the hosting windows this and everything will be there. What if, for example I declaring a variable. Okay, I say I have we can go with var to declare it in global variable. Var a is equal to 10. Okay, done. And once it is done, I declare a function. Okay, and that function is going to be b. Okay, so the b function here it is there, and I am declaring another function. Okay, that function is going to be c, and this function is going to like this. Okay, so when what the function I going to call, when c is the function I going to call. So how this is executed, so well, okay, so I just going to call stack. So in the call stack, so it is the c, the first one executing. So the c, so it has what all other things it has, it has two things, memory and code. Okay, so I just going to say here I just want to execute b. Okay, So I'm in the memory, we have the name of the things and hoisting and all, everything is there, but in the code I need to call the b variable, b thing. Okay, so I need to execute it. Okay, so in the b variable I need to access the a. Okay, so now what happened in the top of the b c call stack, we have this one, right? And we know that every before everything, right, before everything we have this global execution context, right? Inside this global execution context, we know that we have all the variable. It also has memories, and it also has the memory, and it also has the code to execute, right? So it what all are the things inside it? The a variable is inside it, and nothing. It does not have any code to execute. And c, the code is executed, that is why it comes to the code executed, that is why it comes to the top of the call stack, and the c is accessing it, right? So when I say console.log a, okay, so like this, when I call like this, now what happened, this is something called a scoping chain. Okay, clear, and I run it, we can able to access this 10, right? So with some little bit delay because the function need to execute, so we can able to access it. How we can able to do it? Even if I change this to let, okay, even if I change this to let, and if I run it, it will be executed, no other problems will be created, because it doesn't have local scope, but we have access to it. So I just simply say var. Okay, and also just understand the c variable, when the c variable is executing. Okay, so when the c variable is executing, I just simply call this b variable, and in the console.log I want another variable, that is f, and the f variable is created. Let f equal to 19 or 29, something like this. Okay, let's see what happen if I run this code. You can see f is not defined. So what is happening here means, this is called as something called a scoping chain. For example, the by using the scoping chain, the simple concept, the child, we can able to access each and every function of the parents variable and all. For example, the b variable have the b thing have access to the b variable have access to the. Okay, so when we run this, we will get this error. The reason why? Because this is a global variable and we can able to access it. But this is a separate function. It has separate execution context and all. So it has their own variables and we can able to access inside that variable only, right? And it will, if it is not, it will go and look up into this functions, right? So this is what it will do. Instead of this, what happened if if I declare a function like this, like this, and I put inside here. Now in why we not able to call this b inside that function? The reason it is, that is separate global execution context, this is separate global execution context. Now what I put inside this function, I put the same thing also. Now we have the b and also the b in the same execution context, so we have both the things in the same execution context. One is the variable and another one is the function. We have two things in the same execution context, and what I need to return here means, I just want to return the c. So I just want to execute the, sorry, not c, I just want to execute, if someone calls, I just want to execute b. So now what happens means, a scope chain is created. So what is meant by scope chain means, you can able to see this is a function and it has their, inside this it has their own execution context, and it has two things to execute, a and b, right? So always the variable can access to the which function that is inside that, the variables can able to access it. For example, if I run this code now, you can able to see we will get this value. So what is happening means, once once the c function is get run, okay, so we have this v, so both are in the same variable environment, so we can able to access those variable environment even though it is not inside this global execution context. It is go and look for its parents global execution context and it will produce. And if it is not in the parent execution context, then what happen, it will go for the global execution context and it will produce it. Okay, so that's what the variable environment is. A variable environment is nothing but a variables, whatever we are declare inside the function, it is accessible inside the function, because everything in JavaScript is lexically scoped. So it means it means like where we are declaring a variable, it's important. So that is what, so based on that only the accessibility of the variable is determined. Okay, so that is what lexical scope. But here an exception, when we have two functions and the child functions is always have access to their parent function when they are not in the same execution, when they are in the same execution context, we can able to do it. Okay, so that's what this one is. Okay, so the next one we're going to see about this keyword. So what is this? I just want to give a short intro for this, because we have a long video for this keywords and all, and we will discuss in that type very much deeper. So this keyword is nothing but it simply equals to the window. Okay, and each and every execution context we have access to this and window, like how they access to the name and everything. We also have access to this keyword and also window. So inside the function, if you declare with this keyword and window, so there is a slight difference between this and window. So the window is actually an global execution context. So wherever we are calling the window, it will use the global execution context, which means not global execution, the entire browser object that we have, it will declare it. And this is little bit dynamically scoped. Whenever we are in the function, it is going to represent the windows only. Okay, so simply how this refers to means, this is the function that the object property of. Okay, so that's what it is. Simply, for example, I just say window like this and I comment off here, and simply I just going to say uh win if I say we have let a equal to 10. Okay, and we know that both are same. If I say var a is equal to 10 and we call this as window dot a, that is also same, right? So I declare a variable with var a is equal to 10, and this one window dot a equal to it. If I call this is also going to produce the same value 10, right? So simply the this refers to the function is the property of. Okay, so right now it is not a function. Okay, if I creating a function, by creating a function with b like this. Okay, so if I want to execute it, I just say console.log something like this, and I just go here and I just say console.log. No, I just simply want to say b. Now if I execute it, you can able to see we will get this value. And even if I give window dot b like this, if I run this, you can able to see it will execute, right? So both are same, which means there is a syntactic sugar that we don't want to use windows every time. It will automatically understand it is a global function if we don't give anything. Okay, so what this refers to means that this refers to the function. You can see this is the function that is the property of this function is the property of which object? Windows object. So it will refers to that. Okay, so simply this refers to the function that is the property of. Okay, so for example, inside the function, if I call console.log this, now what is going to happen? Now what is going to happen, we know that this refers to the function that the property of, so it is going to return me the windows object. So if I log it, you can able to see we will get a very long one. So this is the windows object and everything inside this windows object, you can able to see the object window. Okay, meanwhile if I wrap this function with any other object, for example I just say const c equal to, and I creating an object, and what I simply do, I just remove this function and I put this a inside this c. Okay, so now if I want to call this function, what we can do, simply we can call c dot b, right? C dot b execution function. Okay, so now what is this going to refer? This is going to refers to the function that is that function is property of. So who is the property of? C, right? So if I clear and run it, it is going to return me the c object. Okay, that's what it will do. So that's the difference. That is what the variable environment and the scope of it. Okay, so just a little bit of intro. Okay, so because the long working practice and handling is going to be upcoming. Okay, so you will get a clear picture in that time, and it will makes much more accessible, and much more easy to understand in that time how whatever the functions and variable environments we having and how it is going to be easily work it out. Okay, so in that time you will have a clear picture of it. Okay, so we have already covered three concepts. One is going to be the basic execution, hoisting, and now variable environment and the little bit picture of this keyword. Have a look into this, because this is going to be the entire base for the upcoming things like the advanced concepts like closures and all, and the paradigms which you're going to see, which we are going to see in the upcoming class. Okay, so I see you in the upcoming class. We will be wait for the next Wednesday and we will continue that. Thank you. Bye.